Hi, this is Sandi Castillo from Latin Soul. You're listening to Harv on 1590 AM.
Hey, Sandi Castillo-Smith.
So yes, I am Sandi Castillo-Smith, and I am turning the tables on Harv today. He is the man that asks all the questions, and I thought it was about time he gave us some answers.
This is the flip the script interview.
Flip the script.
The shoe on the other foot interview.
The shoe on the other foot.
Is there any other ways that you could say that? Flip the script, shoe on the other foot. Time to wear a different hat. Turning the mics around. I don't know.
Freaky Friday?
Ooh. And it was almost Friday the 13th. That was last week.
That was last week.
You should have did it last week.
Special shout out and thanks to Boys and Girls Club on Division and Washtenaw for letting us use the facility today.
We are sitting in the building that I used to run, the building that I was a director of.
That's right. I'm meeting some of the lovely young gentlemen that
club kids that
are grown, and now they're running the joint.
They were my club kids once upon a time, and you see that they have their little staff IDs now, so they went from club kids to staff.
So you do a good job.
Did I have an impact on you? Did I? Good.
Actually, that's the perfect segue. So for those who don't know, I reached out onto Facebook and asked for your fans, your friends, your followers to give me some questions.
All two of them?
To give me some funny stories that we can talk about. And I think the topic that was most hit, myself included, and specifically Sergio Maldonado, he was wondering what motivated you to dedicate yourself to the community, to youth. And I'm curious, was there a stepping stone before Boys and Girls Club?
Well, no, because I was a club kid. So I became a member of the Boys and Girls Club where I grew up when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And that was more, I tagged along my older brother for the first few months, and then he stopped going because he didn't want me to be anywhere near him because we had that kind of relationship. Mm-hmm. And then I kept going.
Okay.
So I started as a 9-year-old kid, and I did a lot of volunteering for a 9-year-old. I wasn't the super athlete, I wasn't the brainiac at that time. I became a brainiac later, and I got my first job at the club as an 11-year-old locker boy. I was making $1 an hour.
Whoa.
$1 an hour.
$1 an hour.
And then when I was 13, they trusted me to start doing special events in the game room. And then when I was 14, I got the game room job. And then I progressed from position to position until I became a program director. And then in 2002, I became the director of the club that we're sitting in now. So I was the club kid that became a club director. So the dedication to the youth, I think, was probably more of a give back because the club had done so much for me when I was a kid, and I wanted to do some giving back. And the stories that I had in common with the kids that were growing up at the club, you know, I think that's what it was. I mean, the club impacted me, the director impacted me at the time, and he still does. We're still friends to this day. He just retired. He's 68 years old, and we still call each other.
That's amazing.
And I think because they took the place of my family in a lot of ways growing up, I thought it would be a good thing for me to do it, and I was there. I had like a 30-year career with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and I work at a charter school, so I'm still working with kids. And even though I'm the ex-director of this club, they still open the doors to me, and They still have me coming in and doing the things that I want to do that are radio related or leadership related, which in a lot of cases, if you come and go, who wants to see the ex-director when the new director is downstairs? But there's handshakes, there's hugs, there's hellos.
Well, and that kind of brings me to another point. I did hear from a couple of people that you were like a dad. So you were a second dad to them.
Yes, I have a 26-year-old son.
No, but
His name is Anthony Lugo.
You were a father to many other children, and I'm guessing that's why you get the handshakes and the hugs and just the open arm welcome every time you come in here. It was more than a job for you. It sounded very personal. I imagine this kind of position how could you not be personal with it?
Well, it's kind of an interesting question because with some people it is a job.
Okay.
And that's all it is. You come, you do your hours, and you leave. And with me, it was never like that. I didn't intentionally set out to be a father figure or mentor to anybody, but what I did set out to be was whatever it was that they happened to need at the time. So if they needed a big brother type of thing or an uncle type of thing, then I felt like I had to, fill that role with some of these kids because unfortunately in the communities that they grew up in, we're in Humboldt Park right now, and the club that I used to work at was in Westtown, and at that time Westtown wasn't what it is now. It was, it wasn't pretty. And those kids needed a lot, and the bad news is a lot of the families were not intact. There were gangs, there were drugs, there were a lot of issues, and I decided that I was going to do what I could to try to keep them, doing the right thing. And yeah, I've been called a mentor and a father figure by several, and I always try to minimize it. I've got a little humility in me where I don't take compliments well. You've probably noticed that in the past, but there are several that have said some things, and I got blindsided once by Christina Figueroa, who's now a federal probation officer, and I had her speak at the Union League Club to some of our girls because she had a tough beginning in her childhood, and she did some things that she probably wasn't proud of. Eventually dropped out of school, became a teen mom, and then decided I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get my master's degree and all this. So I looked at her as somebody who our girls could learn from, and so we did a program here in this building with her.
Oh, wow.
And after that I said, you know what, I need you to talk to the Union League Club. I want them to know that you were a club kid, and look at you now.
Yes.
I did not expect her to tell Harv stories. I did not expect her to say, how Harvey impacted her. And she also teaches at DePaul, and for the last 3-4 years, she has had me speak to her students. And after I'm done talking to her students, then she'll tell the story of she met me when she was a little girl, and she's now not a little girl anymore.
Right.
And that's the impact statement that she made in terms of myself. No, I didn't decide I was going to brand her with Harv. It's just, it happens that way, and it happens that way if you're doing it for the right reasons. And I think it was a combination of me wanting to have an impact on these kids. It was a combination of me wanting to give back to the club that gave to me, and I also think that they played a role in my life that they probably are never going to realize, because my family isn't, I cracked about my older brother a little while ago, not talking and, whatever. But the truth of the matter was, we were not a Brady family or a Partridge family or a Walton family or what's the modern family now with Al Bundy. I think it was a combination of me wanting to have an impact on these kids. It was a combination of me wanting to give back to the club that gave to me. And I also think that they played a role in my life that they probably are never going to realize, because my family isn't, you know, I mean, I cracked about my older brother a little while ago, you know, not talking and, you know, whatever. But the truth of the matter was, we were not a Brady family or a Partridge family or a Walton family or what's the one, the Modern Family now with Al Bundy. We weren't that. And so I think a lot of times the kids at the club literally filled that gap for me. They became kids or nieces or nephews or grandkids or however you want to put it.
I think actually that's a great segue into another point I wanted to talk to you about from Monica Vasquez Martinez. She said, being a role model to so many young people, surely you've taught them.
How do they know this stuff?
Surely you've taught them some life lessons. She was curious what they have taught you.
What the kids have taught me.
Over the years, yeah. What lessons have you picked up from them? You got one listening. Make it good.
What have the kids taught me?
Well, you said they filled a void of family, so maybe not teaching, but maybe a way they give back?
Well, I mean, the kids always were a reason for me to be here or to work with them or to come up with things for them to do, you know, like the radio show that we do with the kids. They may have taught me that you're never told to learn. You know, you can learn from them just like they can learn from you. They've taught me some things that aren't so great in terms of, you know, the things that they go through, and I think they've taught me, especially in this generation. It's 2012 now, so there are so many lifestyles, so many ethnicities, so many different types of kids, and I've been taught to kind of treat them all in the same way, regardless of where they're from or who they like or what their families are like. I think I was taught throughout the years that they're all kids, they're all good. Even they used to call these kids bad kids, and I said, no, there's no such thing as a bad kids. It's just some kids are better than others, but they're not bad, because you can always find something in someone that that's redeemable. And I think maybe that's one of the lessons with the kids. They just, if I hadn't been doing youth work, I don't know what I would have been doing. I don't know if I would have been doing radio work or what, but if you know, anything that gives you reason to want to do something, then you do it. Sure. And the kids at the clubs, I think that's what it was. I mean, they gave me reason to want to go to work. I never at the clubs said to myself, man, I don't want to go to work today. And now at the age of 48, there are times where I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to go to work today. But with the Boys and Girls Clubs, I never had that feeling. I always wanted to go to work. I always put in more hours than I got clocked in for, and I never regretted it.
Wow, that's a wonderful thing to say. That's the ideal job, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was ideal for a long time.
Well, I would be remiss if
I'm trying to figure out how people like Monica are connecting me with Boys and Girls Clubs, because her name is familiar to me with like the freestyle and the radio stuff.
Well, like you said, I mean, you've got people watching, listening, tuning in. Maybe they're not saying so on your pages, leaving comments and such on the Wake Up Dancing, but I mean, they're there, they're listening. I'm listening when you don't know you're...
Well, yeah, well, it could be the Club Kids show if they happen to tune in on a Saturday morning, because generally that's geared towards kids and their parents, who are now used to be my kids.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, so speaking of, then, if Monica's one of your sort of freestyle taps more than the boy and girl tap, we have to talk about freestyle in Chicago. You know, Armando Gomez Jr., myself, Monica, you know, legend has it that you were the first personality to play pre/freestyle in Chicago, to the best of your knowledge. Is that true?
A lot of people have said that. I shouldn't say that I was the first, though, because Ralphie Rosario, when he was with the Hot Mix 5, he played what I've called pre-style with a P. A lot of the stuff that he played preceded freestyle music, and I really liked what he was doing. I had a mobile DJ service that I started in, I think, 1982.
Wait, you used to spin?
Yeah, I used to spin.
No way, I didn't know that.
No, I was the fourth DJ in a 4-DJ group.
What was your name?
You don't want to know.
Come on, Harv, what was it?
The first DJ group I was in, I was Sarnie, the master of mixology.
What?
Sarnie, S-A-R-N-I-E, because once upon a time there was a girl named Sunny at the Boys and Girls Club, and there was me, named Harvey. Somebody called me, somebody called her, and we both responded. And then whoever did the calling said, "Oh, you must be Sarni," and that was his big joke.
Okay.
And then Sonny kept calling me Sarni. So when we started the mobile DJ thing, and I was the fourth DJ in a fourth DJ group, I had no nickname, no jamming or kicking or whatever. So what did they call you? Well, she calls me Sarni. So I became Sarni, the master of mixology. That was throughout high school. And then in '82, I started my own mobile unit because I was friends with Tony Boom Boom Badea's cousin. This was before he was Boom Boom. And I had my mobile DJ team. I heard him spin. He was like 14 years old. He was so much better than I was. So I decided to invite him to start our own DJ group. He was the fourth DJ in his group. I was the fourth DJ in my group. Turned him into Mr. Magic. Turned the mobile unit into Chicago's Magic Mixers. And then he got the Boom Boom moniker by a promoter once because, you know, his wife noticed that Tony was heavier than I was. I'll put it that way. And then it became a Boom Boom thing. It was his style of mixing because he was so quick with the turntables. But you know, he was Tony. He was big at the time. And so I stopped mixing. Tony was doing all the mixing, but I would still, you know, when we did weddings or cotillions, I would play the rock and roll music or the Spanish music. I would play everything that wasn't dance.
Okay.
And then Tony would do all the disco / freestyle stuff. But Tony had stuff in his crates back then. Like Who's Your Boyfriend? I forgot the name of the group. Like Naomi's Please Don't Go. The Shannon stuff.
Sure.
And I gravitated towards the stuff that Tony was playing. And I said, man, this is good stuff. So I would pull it right out of his record crate, and it became my new favorite song. When I wound up at WCYC in December of '85, I was doing a lot of office work. I was doing a lot of alternative programming because at the time, Kenny Jason was in charge of what they called the Young Sounds, and I was the outsider. For some reason, and if you go to wakeupdancing.com and you listen to this interview with Kenny, he'll try to straighten out the story. The music would magically get locked up when I came in on Saturdays with my team. So we just created all kinds of stuff, and alternative tracks here, a slow jam thing there. And when I was doing, 15-minute or a half-hour show, I would take Tony's stuff with me, the stuff that I liked, the Shannons and the Naobis and stuff. That's what I liked. Eventually, Kenny named me program director in '87, and I was already doing my own show. By then, he started liking me for what I was doing, by the way. And and house was big at the time, but there were 8-minute versions of songs that just were so repetitive that when I became program director, I said, no, we can't do this. So my show was basically a freestyle show or pre-style show. Then when I became program director, I started putting it in regular rotation on all the shows. And people gravitated towards it. Not many people were playing it. I know Tony was, because I got it out of his record crate. Sure. Ralphie had progressed because house was so big that Hot Mix 5 was doing all house music. And not really any freestyle music. We're on 28th and Ridgeway playing a lot of the freestyle that had come out at the time, and the connection between the Latino audience and the Latino artists. I mean, your song was bilingual, and there were songs like that, like Baby Don't Go in '87 was a bilingual song that we played a lot, and I wound up getting credit for exposing the artists and the music. And
In '85, was it freestyle? Did it already have the...
no,
Right.
86 is usually the year that everybody connects with the birth of freestyle,
Okay.
because 86 is when TK was formed and Cover Girls were formed, so 86 seems to be the birth of freestyle. But if you go back a couple of years, you'll find your Exposés and your Company Bs and groups like that they were not labeled as freestyle. It was like Miami Dance or something like that. And then when the New York acts got involved, then it got labeled as Latin hip hop at first.
Yeah.
And then eventually it became freestyle. And it's weird because on the north side of Chicago, they were calling it heartthrob, which
Yeah,
I never called
I've
it.
heard heartthrob,
And on
sure.
the south side, I'm calling it freestyle because that's
like
what I
Sox
called
versus
it.
Cubs or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and it's weird. If you find Northsiders from back then, they'll call it heartthrob and not know how it got the name freestyle. And you go to the south side, the old CYC country, and they all call it freestyle, saying, well, it's not heartthrob. They have no idea. So I was given a lot of credit for being the first to play it, the first to program it, and then I would talk to the promoters, Tony Batoya at the time, and Charlie Martinez, and Pinky from All Star Productions, and then we would talk about bringing these people in.
Okay.
And of course, coming in meant Harv wants to interview, so then I'm just interviewing all these people, and nobody else was interviewing them because nobody knew who they were.
You were playing a much larger role than I realized.
So I would interview them, I would play the music, and then at CYC, and we're going to use our half hour talking about this stuff, but at CYC, what I thought was important was to get to know the artist. So I made certain that everybody announced the songs, and then they would back announce the songs. And you couldn't just play something and not tell anybody who it was.
Sure.
These days, you could listen to 2 hours on a B96 and not know
Never know.
who's what.
Yep.
But we did it that way, and then the artists were so good at coming through or calling or whatever that CYC became known for the music and the interviews and the artists, and no matter how big the artist got, they would still tell you that they got their first shot at WCYC. So it's kind of interesting how it blew up, and I think in a lot of cases it was the artist who kind of gave me the credibility, because they would always give us the credit. And then the listener response to what we were doing. If the listeners had not responded to what we were doing, it wouldn't have worked.
And back then, it was just a phone. You
It was a
couldn't
phone.
tweet it. You couldn't update your status.
There was no tweet. there was no tweets, no Facebook, no MySpace.
Or they would physically come to the station.
Well, they would call, because we would have people in studio, and so we'd say, call us, make a dedication, make a request, or whatever. And even if the call didn't wind up on the air, the artist would talk to the people off the air and whatever.
great.
So it was kind of I wasn't setting out to do anything. To me, it was just important to get to know the people, as opposed to just the songs. It was just a strategy I had that I didn't even do it on purpose. It was just, and then at that point, my programming strategy became programming by the artist. So whatever Sandi came out with, it's getting played. If the listeners like it, great. If they don't like it, then we won't play it as much.
Sure.
So it wasn't payola, and it wasn't whatever's in the top 10.
It was really listener requests.
Once the listeners decided something was going to click, then it was also going to be up to them to decide it wasn't going to click. And there were times, like when George came out with I Want You Back, the listeners were like, what's this? Because, he redid a Jackson song that wasn't, the listeners didn't respond to as much as they could. So, then you end up not playing it as much. But I think I think the artist ended up appreciating that, the fact that I would program by the artist or by the record label. Whoever was good to us, we're good to them. And then there were songs that they would bring to us that may not have been the greatest of songs, but we would still put it on the air, and then we would let the listeners decide by request or whatever if it was going to work.
Can you remember the first act you brought in?
Oh boy. Well, the act that stands out the most
Fair enough.
to me is Nelson Cruz, Fast Forward, strictly because once I brought him in, we became friends. We became personal friends. Personal friends to the point that he didn't want to stay in a hotel. He would want to stay at the house.
Oh, that's great.
And so, save Charlie money or whatever, we'll stay at the house. Then Nelson went back to New York, and at this point, Nelson was producing Shannon, he was producing Brenda K. Starr. He was huge. And so what he did was, he went to them all over there and said, listen, if ever you go to Chicago, you have to do Harv Roman's radio show. You better not go through Chicago and not do Harv's show. And then if he was in studio, that was how we did our first Brenda K. interview. It wasn't even an interview. He was in studio and he said, let's wake her up. something weird like that, if I remember right. So he's on the phone calling whoever's in his Rolodex or whatever it was at the time, and Nelson giving word about me in New York, what we were doing here in Chicago, was huge because he was credible.
Sure.
And it made me credible.
First I see tonight. I wish I may and wish I might have my prince tonight. Starlight, star bright. First I see tonight. I wish I may and wish I might have my prince tonight. Where's my knight? In shining armor. Where's my prince? Who saves the day? Is it wrong to want a fairy tale? Happily ever after if I may. Who says that fairy tales only belong to girls? I may be older but heartbreak it still burns. Got so much to give, got so much that's good. If you deserve it, I'll give you the world. Who says that fairy tales only belong to girls? Where's my knight? In shining armor. Where's my prince? Who saves the day? Is it wrong to want a fairy tale? Happily ever after if I may.
And it made me credible. And then I guess the good news is once they met me, like in your story, we became friends. It wasn't just an artist and a radio guy.
Right.
We were friends. Heck, our first interview was in '91.
Yep.
It's 2012, and we're still sitting across from each other. So I guess that would be the biggest one. The interview that probably created the most buzz was when we had TK in studio for the first time, because TK had blown up. And
They're good-looking guys.
they
And they sang.
They started in '86, but they didn't set foot in Chicago, I want to say, till '88 or so. So there was like this anticipation. And then when it turned out that they were going to be in studio, the listeners went nuts.
Were you a little starstruck then? Could that have been like, was that, who have you met that was sort of a big artist and made you a little nervous to sit down?
The first time I interviewed Judy Torres,
Oh,
because I interviewed her later. I think the first time I interviewed her might have been '98 or '99. So I had already been doing radio for a
Sure,
while.
a long
And Judy
time.
was already big, but she wasn't coming to town for some reason. So I had never connected with her. So I was a little awestruck when it came to Judy. The Loose Touches, the George Lamans, not so much, because I interviewed them when they were first starting. And they're on my show when my show was first starting, so it wasn't a starstruck
There's a rapport
thing.
there, yeah.
Now I will say, just 2 days ago, I interviewed Adolfo Quiñones, Shabba-Doo of the Breaking movies. You know who that is, Shabba-Doo? Yeah, well,
I didn't
go to
either.
YouTube.
I apologize.
Well, and I literally said, this has now become a new radio highlight for me, because the impact that he had on kids back in the mid-'80s with the movies and what he's continued to do with young people, it just never struck me that maybe I ought to interview this guy until recently. And to say we went to the same grade school. He went to the Boys and Girls Club. And he told a story on the interview about, this mentor at the club, not Harv, somebody else that really had a huge impact on him. He put me on a mission. He wants me to find this guy.
Oh, really?
Shabba-Doo is 57 years old, and he remembered the guy that taught him how to shoot pool at the club, and he got a little emotional about it when we were talking about it. But when they confirmed that I was going to be able to interview him, then I was like, man, I hope it comes through. Man, I hope it comes through. Now, I've interviewed people who have become big. When people see pictures of me with George Lopez,
Sure.
then they'll say, man, George Lopez, big star, and you're nervous. But no, because when I first interviewed him, he was George Lopez, but he wasn't George Lopez. John Leguizamo was pretty much the same. I probably got a little geeked up interviewing Malcolm Jamal Warner because he had already been Theo.
Yeah.
And I had my son with me, and my son was like, I'm meeting Theo, so that was pretty neat. And in terms of the, I've done so many musical artists that I can't tell you if there's somebody that was like, man, I'm so glad that I mean, I've always been happy to do interviews, but I can't think of anybody that
Yeah, and real quick, I just wanted to give a shout. Gino Soundwaves, in particular, was who was looking for that kind of info.
he wants to know who was I awestruck by. The actors, because they were not in the freestyle business. Some of the comics that I've interviewed, I mean, I've interviewed Paul Rodriguez, and he's huge. You know, people like that, I think, because they're, again, with the freestyle thing, it's you and I, we've been friends forever. So a lot of the freestyle acts, most of the freestyle acts that I've interviewed, I've known you guys since you started. So it's not an awestruck moment. It's more that we're both progressing,
Yeah.
you know, and achieving things, and I get to be proud of you, but I don't, you know, I don't go, wow, that's Sandi. I just touched her. Because you're Sandi.
Have you ever had a radio show, whether it was someone you were interviewing or you were it was just your regular show, where you had a WTF moment, like something just went horribly awry? I think it was Monica that was wondering if there was any snafus.
Well, I'm not going to say awry, but Judy will remember this. We had a Judy.
Torres?
Yeah, we had done the Oak Theater with Judy Torres the night before. And of course, I'm the MC, so you know I bring her back and talk to the fans a little bit. And so she announced to the Oak Theater crowd that she was going to be at WCYC Sunday the next day, and she said, "You're all invited." And the Oak Theater was on like Armitage and Western Avenue. WCYC was on 28th and Ridgeway, so we're not thinking
How big is
people are going to
what's
show
the
up.
head capacity?
And it was Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
So anyhow, Judy shows up for the interview, and the next thing you know, that hallway was filled. You remember that hall that led into WCYC? There were probably 75, 80 people.
Wow.
So I opened the interview with Judy, and then she says, you know what? I have to excuse myself. The fans are out there. I want to meet them. I want to sign autographs. So she walked away from the interview to meet with everybody. So I'm playing her music, and I'm
live
talking
interview.
about what's going on.
Okay.
But she wanted to mingle with everybody that showed up.
And she's still like that today.
And she came back, man, it was probably 20, 25 minutes later, and she apologized, but she said, all these people came to see me, so I wanted to see them too. So our actual interview, probably not even 15 minutes. And she was there probably for an hour.
Wow.
So to me, that was a powerful thing for two things. We were at a Northside Theater, and we're a Southside radio station. It was kind of a comment, if you're going to show up, show up. And how many people are, you know, and I don't remember when the Oak Theater used to close back then, but let's just say it was midnight. You know, you're midnight, you're on your feet, you're at this freestyle event, you finally get to go home. Who's really listening when
Right.
Judy says go to 28th and Ridgeway?
That's right.
75 or so did. To me, that probably, in terms of a show, that might have been the most awestruck moment, only because so many people showed up. And again, back then, there's no online radio. There's no podcasting. It's you, an aluminum foil, and a fork, and a coat hanger trying to catch 90.5 FM.
It really was.
And for that many people to come out, you know, I think about it now, and I didn't shoot interviews I didn't shoot videos of our interviews back then. I wish I would have, because that probably stands out as the show in terms of on the air. The only one that I guess would have compared is my last show.
is drawing near. Can you escape all of your fears? Escape all of my fears. Like the heart in my chest, it needs to never rest. I'm chasing after you till all my dreams come true. Gonna be my love machine. I'll drive me on the scene. Drive me, never stop until you hear me scream. Gonna be my love machine. You scream, I scream, we scream. Gonna turn me on, turn me up, launch me towards a dream. Satellites and stars, tell me where you are.
You know, I didn't on the air announce that it was going to be my last show. I told a couple of people that it was going to be my last show just so they knew. And then Charlie Baby, Marisa Lopez, Tim Somer, Eric G, Law, Rochelle, Troy Guy, Joel. I mean, I just named 8 acts that showed up. Exotic Love. There's at least 9 acts that showed up for the last show because it was the last show. And I didn't ask them to come in. I didn't recruit them to come in. I just figured I was going to do this final show, and then I'll say my farewells, and that's it. But they all showed up. I mean, you've seen the pictures, and it wasn't coordinated. They showed up, and then when it was all said and done, we all went to Tech Line on Chicago Avenue.
I love that restaurant, by the way.
Do you?
Delicious.
So you don't want to eat Puerto Rican after this? You want to go to Tech Line?
No, let's get some authentic Puerto Rican. Moving on. So we've talked about old school. So quickly, Armando and Serge, kind of a combo question. How do you feel about the music being played on the radio today? What do you think of the new freestyle sound? You just did Mary Reyes, right?
Murray Reyes.
Yeah.
Murray is very cool.
Yeah, she is very cool.
We talk a lot off the air, literally. We call each other a lot, and I have not yet interviewed her. And every time she promotes that
I thought you did interview her.
Every time that she says she's going to be on an interview show, I go, I'm jealous. Because every time we've said we were going to do an interview, it hasn't occurred, yet we've talked off the air about a lot of stuff. And one day she's apologizing because, the latest, thing that occurred that we couldn't do the interview. And I said, you know what? If I never get an interview and all I had was these personal conversations, I'm okay with that. Because to me, that's a friendship. It's not an artist thing. It's a friendship. And I would say the same thing, to you. If we never interviewed again and we stayed friends, then I don't worry about the interview stuff.
Right.
The stuff that we talk about, we used to talk on the phone for hours. Those are the conversations that...
But I'm a little disappointed, though, because I reached out to her. I'm like, give me some dirt. Tell me something.
She doesn't know any dirt.
But you said you guys talk all the time.
We do.
She made a comment. She said, this interview thing is about to get rather interestingly caliente. I definitely have to listen to this one. Can I be on three-way? Ha, 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 ha.
Well, if it were live, it would have been nice. Marie's interesting because I like her music.
So do I.
We haven't met face to face. We've talked a lot on the phone, but a lot of the times that we talk, she calls asking about the business, asking about people, asking about contracts. I mean, that kind of stuff. And then we'll talk about, other stuff here and there. But she's, I don't know if she wants me to talk about this, but sometimes I think she sees me as Theo Freestyle or some kind of mentor or something like that, because even, she's starting off, she's been around for a couple of years, but she's still kind of getting her feet wet. And I think because I've been around and I've known whatever I know, that's how, that's where a lot of our conversations go towards, is the business and what to expect.
Well, and I feel like the scope of how you sell records these days and promote these days is different than what it used to be. I think we need to come back to an old school approach. Yeah. I mean...
and she's never asked me to push anything of hers. I just happen to like it.
Sure.
And we became Facebook friends, because that's the thing to do in 2012.
Right.
And then... we traded numbers because we were going to do an interview, and we just became friends and have conversations and have never hit the mic yet.
Well, so you like Murray's music. How about other new style?
Well, There's no new style. It
does sound a little rehashed still.
What was it? The Black Eyed Peas with the "Can You Feel the Beat"? There's literally Lisa ends up
Sure.
getting sampled into the music. The music that's out now. You would listen to Lady Gaga and tell me that wouldn't have been freestyle if there was a label to it. There are songs of hers that blatantly sound, freestylish. I do like what's that, LMNOP, LMAO, whatever the group is.
Laughing my off.
I do like them. I do like their music because it reminds me.
So you
of
like
the
that
old
little
club music.
dubstep breakdown in the...
I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it's dubstep or two-step or whatever. All I know is that I like it. So I do like some of the new stuff. I like when people like Judy and George experiment with different sounds, even though sometimes people will, why don't you just do your freestyle? Like, well, you probably get it too. You dabble in other forms of music besides
I love
freestyle.
electronic music and dub, and I put stuff out there on my Facebook, and I get crickets.
And the fans are like, well, when are you doing another freestyle song? I mean, George comes up with "Don't Start Believing," which I thought he did a killer version of it, and then he has to prod people into singing along at Studio 63. I mean, the bad news is, freestyle is a form of music that's considered to be, classic and 25 years old, and they want the artist to continue that style of music. But if you're going to crack a Billboard chart, if you're going to get radio play, then you need to do something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is that the acts now, the newer acts, they're going back to music that they grew up with, and they're putting elements of that into the new music, and people think it's new. Mm-hmm. Can You Feel the Beat is not new.
Or even the Pitbull song with the baby.
Yeah, well, Pitbull, I like Pitbull.
Have you ever got to speak to him, meet him?
No. I mean, and he would be one that I probably would say, oh wow, now I'm talking to Pitbull, because
Okay.
he's not somebody that I saw grow up.
Yeah, who's on your bucket list, as far as who you would like to interview?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have one.
Okay.
If it came down to just the one, then Madonna would probably be the one, only because I was playing everybody, her club stuff, before she blew up. Mm-hmm. And I liked her stuff. I forgot there was another song she did besides Everybody back then. And it was the 12-inch on Sire Records. I've got the thing. And then Borderline and Lucky Star and videos later, she's Madonna.
Right.
But her roots were in dance music, and
sure.
And if you listen to Everybody, it's pretty much a freestyle song. it was the 12-inch on Sire Records. I've got the thing. And then Borderline and Lucky Star and videos later, she's Madonna.
Right.
But her roots were in dance music, and and if you listen to everybody, it's pretty much a freestyle song. It just wasn't labeled it at the time. You know, I would love to sit and talk with her about her roots and going from Detroit to New York with however many dollars she had in her pocket to the person that she is now, 53 years old, and still commanding the respect that she commands. She made boys retire their belly shirts, come to think of it.
Belly shirts?
Belly shirts. Think about it. Chachi from Happy Days, belly shirt. Revenge of the Nerds,
Okay.
all the guys, all the jocks, belly shirts. And then here comes Madonna, and she took it.
Speaking of, Laura Hernandez, who gave me a quick message right when I got here with you, she said, she didn't have a question, but she said I should mention something about the freckled belly button obsession you have.
There's not a freckled belly obsession. Laura used to be one of us at WCYC, and there was a listener who, under the guise of wanting to become a student, started showing up to the studios, and she was talking about all her freckles. She lifted her shirt to show that she had freckles even on her belly.
Okay.
And Laura was there, and Laura, this other girl whose name I won't say, she used to write these She Loves Harv types of things, and it got to the point where I decided she couldn't be a student anymore because she was more into this weird obsession, for lack of a better term, than wanting to be a student. But she flashed me her freckles, and Laura forever thinks...
Ran with it.
Yeah. And every time she mentions that term, it brings me memories that are not always good.
Makes you cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're trying to wrap up. Some general comments, and if we have time for more question, we'll do question. I do want to say Connie Garcia didn't have a question, but she said Harv is the best, and he should have a street named after him. He has always been there for us. He's like a second father to me and to a lot of people. That's all I can say.
Connie was one of my club kids. She's a mom now, but I had her, from the time she was 6 years old. And it's interesting because I just tagged her on a post on Facebook 14 years ago. She was part of a group of kids that interviewed Patty Vasquez, big famous comedian now. And Patty's DVD release is coming up the 26th. And so I'm replaying the club kids interviewing Patty.
Oh,
because
crazy.
Patty's this big DVD. And I actually tagged these kids because I think Amanda's 23 and engaged to be married. And I'm saying, you guys ought to go see Patty at her DVD release party and then say, listen, I interviewed you when I was 9 years old. And Patty would get such a kick out of that. And Connie was in that, one of the kids that interviewed Patty.
Kelly Burgos said all she had to say really was that she just calls you her freestyle fiance.
Yeah.
That sounds very parallel to the freckled belly button obsession.
No, it's not an obsession. The good news is that I recently saw a Lindsay Lohan movie, and she too is freckled.
Yes, she is.
So I no longer think of the other one that Laura referred to. And when I saw this movie, and I noticed, I said, you know what? And I don't know if it was a text or if it was a Facebook, but I sent it to Laura and I said, I no longer think of the other person now because Lindsay Lohan has freed me of that. I thought there was only one freckle-bellied person out there, and she was the one with the crazy obsession back at CYC. And Kelly from Joyzy is an online listener. She listens to what I do when I podcast. And she's very, very nice, and she's very, very affectionate when she types. And during one particular show, we were doing a lot of back and forth live, on the computer. Because when I'm doing my shows online, my face is in the computer. While I'm doing the show, I got my equipment, and then I got the computer. So I don't know if you've ever listened and
you
done this at the same
pretty darn quick.
Right away.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And we just had an exchange. And I
proposed
and I said something like, I ought to just put a ring on layaway. And then she jumped at it as I would accept it, and then I said, well, I guess you're my freestyle fiance or something like that. So we've not met, but And I don't know if she's married in real life or not, so if there's a Mr. Cali somewhere, there is no ring on layaway.
Sergio Maldonado, he just wanted to give credit where credit was due and said that in regards to WCYC, he said this station shaped the sound of Chicago.
Well, at least the sound of a particular segment of Chicago, because you'll have the north side that never heard of WCYC for the most part with their heartthrob stuff. But see, you know, in whatever you would consider WCYC country, yeah, because the listeners made the effort to listen to us when they didn't have to. It would have been very easy to do a B96 or Z95 at the time, or BMX or whatever, and what they did was, and you were there, you lived it as an artist. You know, once they bought into you, and then we were the only guys who were playing you for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, when B96 started playing freestyle with the Georges and the TKAs, they were like 4 or 5 years late.
I remember the Promise Me remix, the bilingual version, came out the same time Noel's Question did. And we, you know, Juan was going every Wednesday. They had like New Music Day or something, and you would go and try to meet with the program director, and you'd present your PR package.
Yeah, and that was this was after I was done being program director. This was Chuck and Juan's version of recruiting. I never had a record day. You could show up whenever. And some people would come to me when I was hosting events and give me a cassette or something like that. I got Law's music. I was at the Alcatraz, and there's a crumbled up plugger on the floor, her flyer. And I looked at it, and it was like, if you want to listen to the song, call this number. So I get home from Alcatraz, I call the number, and I'm listening to this stuff. I'm like, holy smokes, this stuff is good. So I left a message, and the next thing you know, we're interviewing them, and their song hadn't come out yet. And some people would come to me when I was hosting events and give me a cassette or something like that. I got Law's music. I was at the Alcatraz, and there's a crumbled up plugger on the floor, her flyer. And I looked at it, and it was like, if you want to listen to the song, call this number. So I get home from Alcatraz, I call the number, and I'm listening to this stuff. I'm like, holy smokes, this stuff is good. So I left a message, and the next thing you know, we're interviewing them, and their song hadn't come out yet. And then it just blew up. So yeah, but the typical radio station back then, yeah, they had certain days that you would come in and push your stuff. But to me, if you gave me your record and it was clean, I'm going to play it at least once. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. These days, it's such a political game to play that the foot in the door is usually who produced it, you know, or something like that,
Yeah.
who remixed it. You know, did Pitbull touch it? Okay, we'll play it. Did Pitbull not touch it? Well, let's leave it alone.
Sneeze on it?
So,
Do we have time for like any other?
Yeah, you should just shoot off the top of
Yeah,
your.
well, no, I wanted to make sure I was getting around to things that people messaged me about. I thought Monica was like a little Barbara Walters. She had some amazing questions. She wanted to know if you had the opportunity to interview President Obama or talk to Michelle. I mean, what would you ask or tell them? I'm wondering if it would be community-based, too.
I met Barack Obama at a tutor mentoring conference when he was I was part of the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs, and he was part of a South Side, they were community organizers. I don't remember the name of the outfit, and he was the keynote speaker, but he was just this community organizer guy.
Wait, how long ago would you say that?
He wasn't a state senator yet.
Okay.
He was an organizer. He was a community guy. He hadn't been elected to anything. He was just, like me, a community guy. And he spoke, and he did really, really well. And me, I'm a fan of people who speak well. If you're articulate, if you can get a point across. I was a big fan of Harold Washington, for instance, just because that guy could talk circles around people. And Barack Obama speaks at this tutor mentoring conference, however many years ago, and I made it a point to go find him afterwards and tell him how good he was, and shook hands, whatever. We didn't take pictures, I wish we would have.
Yeah.
Who would have known? But he was good.
Yeah.
And back then you knew that there was something about that guy. That there was something about him in terms of being articulate. He works without notes. He's good. And so I actually did meet him.
Okay.
Never tried to track him down. It'd be a little harder to do that now. But I mean, me and David, our documentary videographer guy, I had him help me interview Miguel Duvalier, who was a state senator and a city clerk. He used to be director of this club.
Okay.
When it was in another form, in another building, but at the same address. So we've done some politicians, some Hollywoods and stuff like that. I've done a little bit of everything.
Just want to make sure I hit everything. You said that you found yourself on Wikipedia. Did you add or did you have to correct anything?
I Googled.
Did you know he's on Wikipedia?
I Googled myself.
I Googled myself too. Have you Googled yourself?
And I did, and somebody, I don't know who, had put in an entry at Wikipedia that talked about Chicago freestyle and whatever role WCYC played and I played, and whoever wrote that, they were on point. So they knew what they were writing about. I didn't put it in. I don't know who put it in, but they did. They talked about, it was almost the exact same thing I said. That I took a format and I faded out certain music.
Did you have a bio somewhere maybe that they just copy and pasted?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they listened to the Kenny interview. Maybe they've listened to me. I don't know. I don't think I have a bio online. There might be, but they were on point. And so it was kind of neat to see Wikipedia covering freestyle, and then they divided it up: Florida, New York, Chicago. When they got to Chicago, I was the one that was named as the big influential person when it comes to freestyle. So it's a nice thing to hear. I always try to minimize it because it could have been anybody. It just turned out that I liked it and I played it, and others didn't like it so quickly.
You can't be too humble, Harv.
Because we're in Humboldt Park.
Actually, you kind of answered a question that I was going to ask you. So I'm thinking in my head that you heard some album, went to some concert, and it made you say, I want to be in the music industry in some capacity. Like, I thought it was a song or an artist that made that switch turn for you. But it sounds like it was just this accidental thing that happened as you were sort of doing different responsibilities around the club.
I grew up listening to The Loop. I was like Foghat, Led Zeppelin, Kiss, Aerosmith.
Gold Earring, or what is that?
Then disco came along, and I really liked.
You're my true love, and that you'll always be. Time can never change, boy, just what you mean to me. I've saved a place, it's for you inside my heart. It's like we're still together, even though we're still apart.
we're back.
And we're back. That's right. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
You asked me about the
what
music
made you want to
thing.
get into the music industry?
I didn't set out to be in the music industry. My big dream was to be in the radio, which I've been able to do, just not the way I wanted to do it.
Did you take to it like a duck to water, or were there
No,
awkward
I went to
moments?
I went to broadcasting school on a scholarship that I won when I won my Member of the Year in 1981. And it was a $500 scholarship, and there was a place called Midwestern Broadcasting School that had ads out, and LaDonna Tittle was their alumni, Steve King was their alumni, and I said, oh, okay, how much is this going to be? 800, whatever. So I took the $500 that I got on scholarship, and then I added the $300, and I figured, because I was a goof. I always wanted a tape recorder when I was a kid, and I would pretend.
Is this the one you had?
Not the same one. And I did a lot of pretending in the washroom, a lot of pretending wherever else, and so I always goofed around with recorders and microphones and whatnot. And then when I went to broadcasting school, I was in high school at the same time. I was 17. I was the youngest kid in class, and I followed all the directions to try to get a radio gig, but I'm 17. Who's gonna hire me? So I let the radio thing go, and then one day Tony and I are doing the Mexican parade on 26th Street. We're DJing.
Boom boom.
Right, Tony Boom Badea, and we're DJing, and then Vince Gomez, who was the director of the Little Village Boys and Girls Club, came up to us and says, we have a radio station, right down there. So then I went to the radio station and started doing office work for Harold Kopta, who's not here anymore. And then he gave January '86, he gave me a block of programming on Saturdays. I got 4 hours, do what you want with it. And I got my high school buddies. I got David, David did like a classic rock show. Jesse did like a blues show. Gloria did the alternative track show. She had a friend named Jennifer who helped her. And then it was me. That was our team. And so that's when they started locking up all the other music, because we were the new guys, and we weren't part of Kenny's group.
That's
But
right, you were stepping on toes.
I was Harold's guy stepping on toes. And so and then the Boys and Girls Club career took off to the point where I think in '87 I got my first program director's job as a full-time. So I had always did Boys and Girls Club work full-time, so I really didn't focus on the radio stuff except for the part-time stuff I was doing at WCYC. But part of that is kind of an interesting lineage, because what we did then is we took young people, gave them radio classes, and hoped that they would turn out to be successful broadcasters.
That's okay.
Rick Party, one of our teenagers, he became huge, and he's now in West Palm Beach doing radio and imaging. Candy Gomez, former CYC student, now she's with Kiss FM. Donnie Devo.
Oh wow, that's great.
So we Irma Campuzano, who's now with Univision, she was one of the teenagers back then. So it was interesting that through our classes and what we were doing at WCYC, I was watching kids come out of the classes and doing really good. And,
Yeah.
and to me, it was like, okay, if they were my student, then I guess I'm doing pretty good too.
Yeah.
So there's a little jealousy, but I am so proud of somebody like Rick Party, because he became so huge that, he was on GCI and The Beat, and then he's the voice of BET. If you ever listened to the voice on BET,
Of course,
it's
yeah.
Rick Party. And but anybody, he'll be the first to say Harv was his first program director. Harv was the one that gave him his shot, and he'll say that now as the voice of the BET Music Awards, whatever they call it. And he's never forgotten where he came from, and I've never forgotten that he always credits his very beginnings. And I've had him talk to club kids when he was at GCI, and he said, I won't be here but one for that man. He that's the kind of thing that just kept me going. So I don't remember what the question was. But, in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have pursued radio harder, but then I can't, because then maybe the Boys and Girls Club career is affected. Maybe what I'm doing at the school now that I work at is affected. Maybe we're not sitting here across from each other. So I can't regret any of that. I know that there are a bunch of club kids that have some pretty cool things to say about me. And then there's the whole other life, the whole freestyle life that the club kids mostly don't know about.
Yeah, it's like you've got this dual personality.
And so the whole freestyle thing, the uncle of freestyle or whatever, that feels good too, because you have one Chicago guy that was listed on Bad of the Heart as an album credit, and it wasn't all the names that you might throw out there. And to me, that was, I have an autograph. He signed the 12-inch of Without You.
Speaking of, bam.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it got a little bent
She
up
did a
in my
band. Oh, we gotta go. But he signed the 12-inch of Without You. George did. The album hadn't come out yet. And he said, on the autograph, you can look it up. He says he definitely earned a spot in the credits for the album.
That's amazing.
So the album comes out in cassette before CD, and I went to get it at Hot Jams.
Yeah.
And then I looked for my name, because I was like, man, I wonder if George kept his promise. And I'm reading, and yeah, it's Harv Roman. In parentheses, it says WCYC. Yeah. And to me, that was huge, because again, it's a credibility thing. And when you have the artists themselves that will tell you all these things that have come from whatever the relationship was, you know, personal, professional, radio, who knows. I forgot what your question was, because I was I was remixing stuff.
I think we just gradually got into discussion. No, we were just talking about what got you into radio, and I think you sufficiently answered that.
I was a goofball with a recorder that went to broadcasting school and then never left it. I just didn't do it as big as some of my
But you
former
inspired
students.
and motivated, yeah.
And that's what I get a kick out of.
And I think that was the whole idea. You wanted to set these kids on a career path, and that's very successful.
And it's not just that, because you got Gino, who became a dentist, and you got Johnny that became a police officer. You got Armando, who became a lawyer. So there was a lot of CYC kids that didn't end up as radio kids, but they've done really well. And a lot of them, even little Laura, her daughter does voiceover work in California, and little Laura says that, even with her freckle belly comments, she'll say that what happened at CYC when she was just a 14-year-old shaped how she has gotten her daughter into the voiceover world in Los Angeles. She'll say that what happened at CYC when she was just a 14-year-old shaped how she has gotten her daughter into the voiceover world in Los Angeles. And that's a pretty neat legacy to have. So if I never did another radio show again, you still have all these other things that occurred as a result of it. And with the Boys and Girls Club, it's kind of the same thing. You know, if I never got back in the Boys and Girls Club business, there's still this lineage of kids that go back years that I can say, well, if it wasn't for the club, that doesn't happen.
For real.
For reals.
Well, I think that's a good note to end it on.
Now did you have your own questions, or you just
I mixed them in. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
let me
good.
just give quick shout outs again to people that wanted to make sure that I had something to talk about with you today. Monica Vasquez Martinez, Sergio Maldonado, Armando Gomez Jr., Sandra Vargas popped in, Gino Soundwaves, of course Laura Hernandez, Marie Reyes, Callie Burgos, and Connie Garcia.
This is interesting. Now I get to edit this and put it up on the
Good luck.
on the wakeupdancing.com. Well, I'm not going to edit it. Basically, what I do
leave
is,
it be.
however it is, and that's the way I do all of my interviews. I just cut it up into 7-minute segments so I can put music in the middle of it.
Can I ask for a special request?
Do you want to hear Promise Me?
No. Okay, 2 requests. I don't want to hear Promise Me. I love electro music and dub. Can we try to introduce another form of music?
Yeah.
Progressive trance?
Well, you might have to email me something,
I
because
figured
don't.
you wouldn't have any.
Well, I've got my collection of almost everything freestyle. I've got all my rock and roll stuff. I got my slow jam stuff. The newer dance music, unless somebody sends something to me, I don't go off and buy anything, because I can't.
All right.
So I don't have it, only because I don't have it. I have all the Now CDs, because with the club kids I have to have current music.
Okay,
So I
well,
just
so
get-
you have like the
so-
Jennifer Lopez.
So I get the Now CDs.
What is it, Dance Again or whatever, or like some of that stuff. Some of the.
So yeah, no, I've got like all the Now CDs, so that way the
All right.
kids have
I'll have
some.
to see what was on the last Now and
But
tell you to put it
yeah,
up.
I'll try to mix up some musical stuff that's not necessarily Latin soul
freestyle,
or
freestyle, and post-style.
I still want to trademark that word, so somebody else used it. They credited me.
Oh, well, that's good.
You know, Benji Espinoza said, you know, Harv has this. He said
Yeah,
Harv has
DJ
this word.
International was using it. Yeah, they were.
But he told me. He blue lighted me on the Facebook and said that Harv uses this word, and this is what I call it now.
Oh, and
So
special
I
thanks
got
to
credit.
David for taking some stills, sitting there.
but
Did your foot fall asleep?
They thought they'd be out of here by 6:15, and it's 6:51.
Oh no! So we gotta hip hop.
I gotta pack my bags.
All right. Well, it was fun. Did you have fun?
Thanks, Edwin, for letting us use that, and Hector for letting us use the Boys and Girls Club for this.
Yep.
And David, we kept you here when you probably could have been eating something somewhere.
It's Friday. You got the next 2 days to do whatever.
You don't know. I don't know what he's doing on the weekend. See that? Now, Sandy would have brought you a picture.
I know. I didn't know there would be a third party. You don't want a picture.
But we'll see what this
He's
sounded
like,
like.
"Don't worry about
This
it."
is going to be interesting now. Now, are we going to do this strictly for the wakeupdancing.com, or should we try to fix it up for the AM show, the 1590 show?
Why not both?
What was your vision?
My
when you thought of
vision,
this?
I think I thought it was gonna be a freestyle Imas segment, but what? So, and I'm guessing that's what I'm still picturing your 1590 show is.
Yeah, no, the 1590 show is.
Do you want to stop that
Club
because
Kids
you have
Radio?
something on here that you don't want to tape over?
I already had put it on CD. The 1590 stuff, we probably won't use this anyway, so you're right. So we'll wave. Thanks again.
Thanks.
The amount of